Do we source products only from China? No, we don't. We do actually, of course, source a lot of products still from China. And let me give you a short little bit of a history of how we have developed over the last years. So, say about 2 years ago, we used to have about 10% of all of our projects that we're sourcing from outside of China. But by now, it's about 45% of the projects are still sourcing inside China. Rest is from all over the world. Now, where may those countries be? I mean, for sure, for once, it is other Asian countries. It may be Vietnam, Malaysia, Thailand, Indonesia, but as well, of course, further towards a little bit at least towards the west, it could be India, Pakistan, Bangladesh. Yet at the same time, is specifically for European sellers, European brands, there's a lot of production by now happening inside Europe, inside the EU, or even as well in Turkey. Yet at the same time, more and more production is also moving towards, Africa. The Chinese companies as well are investing, as well as the government, are investing a lot into the African continent of making this the workbench of China, or China's China, as some people might say. Now, for US sellers, on the other hand, also the Mexican market, South America, or the US and Canada, of course, as well, are markets to look into where you can do sourcing. Now, why is that the case? Why specifically away from China? That for once, you may see this, of course, in the last 2 years, or in the last 2.5 years by now, what has happened, especially during the time over Corona, etc., when all the companies and the factories had lockdowns, had shutdowns. You will have seen as well that production from one country only globally may cause some quite big difficulties in the supply chain. Not only that the factories have been shut down, not only that the order books became bigger and bigger, and the orders, of course, had to be produced as well, but also shipping times. I mean, you may of course remember the Suez Canal issues, but not only this, but also the overload of production and shipping for brands and customers all over the world wanting still to have products during Corona caused some major disruptions, of course, in the supply chain. Yet one other big factor, especially for the US, is that the US economy and China, they're not in the best terms. So there is an economic war going on, where I think back in 2018 already, a market worth of about $250 billion have been taxed with 25% import tariffs at least, if not even higher. I think the highest we've seen were 47, 48%. So there, for US sellers, very often it makes sense even to look into other Asian countries where the same product may come from with 0% import tax, or do it in a nearshoring way, a lot closer to the US, let it be Mexico or South America or the US itself. And for European sellers, of course, other Asian countries as well, but as well the EU, but as well as the rest of Europe and other countries all over the world as well. We do source in all of those countries. We're not restricted to China. And to give you a small glimpse of what has developed over the last 2.5 years is that in the very beginning, we had about 10% of our projects were outside of China. Now, we have about 45% of the projects still inside China, and the rest is literally from outside, from the rest of the world.